Sunday dinners at the Whitmore estate were always a performance. I toyed with a forkful of salmon, tuning out the echo of wine glasses and condescension. Across the long oak table, my brother Nathan grinned like a man who had already won the game. "Final signatures go through next week," he said, checking his Rolex. "Whitmore Logistics will be under new management before the fiscal year ends. Dad can finally rest easy." I smiled into my glass. If only they knew. The deal they were toasting had been set in motion by me 10 months ago, from a walk-up in Seattle, not a corner office in Chicago. "That's great, sweetheart," my stepmother cooed, reaching for more asparagus. "And how's that lakeside condo treating you?" Nathan leaned back smugly. "The mortgage is insane, but the bonus package makes up for it." Then came the inevitable shift. My father turned his gaze to me, brow already furrowed. "And you, Elise, still fiddling with that online thing?" "This online thing," I said calmly, "is my company. Velocity Nexus, a tech firm I'd launched at 25. Now I was 34, and it ran smoother, faster, and more profitably than Whitmore Logistics ever had." Nathan chuckled. "You mean the YouTube videos and the startup blog?" He didn't know that Velocity Nexus now powered back-end systems for 3 Fortune 500 companies, that our cybersecurity framework protected more than a dozen state-level agencies, that from my cozy workspace, once dismissed as a spare bedroom, I closed contracts worth more than his quarterly budget. "It pays the bills," I said. "The bills," my stepmother sighed. "Elise, you're nearly 35, you live alone, and your office is in your guest room. Maybe it's time to let Nathan help you get a foot in the door." I thought of that guest room, which housed a quantum encrypted network node, of the garden-level storage space that had become a certified data vault, of my brownstone, bought in cash, now valued at $3,200,000, 0 cents. I'm exactly where I want to be. "Comfortable isn't the same as accomplished," my father said. "Your brother, VP by 33, is continuing the Whitmore name with purpose. That name, always their measuring stick. Someone has to carry on the legacy," Nathan said, smug again. My phone buzzed quietly under the table. It was my assistant. The merger had just closed. And I owned Whitmore Logistics. A message lit up on my screen, from Amanda, my actual assistant, not a social media intern or a fan club mod, but a Stanford MBA who left Meta to work for me. "Final merger documents ready. Whitmore Logistics board looks rattled." "At least I'm building something of my own," I said aloud, swirling the wine in my glass. "Building what?" Nathan laughed. "A Discord server full of motivational quotes? How many subscribers now? 500? 6? I didn't answer. Instead, I thought of Velocity Nexus's real figures. Over 6,200 employees on payroll, 9 countries. Government contracts across North America and Europe. A cybersecurity wing that quietly prevented breaches for companies Nathan couldn't even name. And now, the puppet master behind the acquisition of his legacy. "Something like that," I murmured. "Elise," my father said, voice heavy with the disappointment he'd refined over the years. "You had every advantage. Princeton, that robotics fellowship in Tokyo. Amazon and Google practically begged for you. And for what? TikTok tutorials?" I stared at the crystal centerpiece, trying not to let old wounds reopen. I had tried, once, to bring Whitmore Logistics into the 21st century. Automation, cloud systems, real-time analytics. They'd called it unnecessary. Said tradition mattered more than code. "The world's moved on, Dad," I said gently. "Physical infrastructure means nothing without the digital backbone to support it." "Business is business," he snapped. "You make things, ship them, store them, not code." My phone buzzed again. Whitmore Logistics shares down 11.8% post-merger leak. Emergency board meeting scheduled. Nathan straightened in his seat. "Speaking of business, did you hear? We're buying out a pesky little startup, some digital nuisance called, he paused for dramatic effect, Atlas Tech Solutions, my father said, puffing his chest. We're paying a hefty sum, but it's worth it, taking out the competition. I smiled behind my glass. Atlas, named after my old tabby cat. A shell company I had registered from a rented desk in Capitol Hill 3 years ago. A fake firm with a real impact, created to bleed Whitmore contracts and drive panic into their boardroom. Interesting move, I said sweetly. You wouldn't get the strategy, Nathan waved. It's complex. It's high-level corporate strategy, Nathan added smugly, not Instagram pep talks about hustle culture. He wasn't wrong about it being strategy. He just had no idea who was orchestrating it. Velocity Nexus had spent 2 years infiltrating the logistics market with precision, exploiting every outdated protocol Whitmore Logistics clung to, every board member they ignored, every contract they assumed was safe. I just wish, my stepmother sighed, you'd come back to the family business. There must be something suitable for you. In marketing, maybe? I pictured the emergency board meeting tomorrow. The panic. The realization that Atlas Tech Solutions was a decoy. That every competitor who'd outmaneuvered them recently had quietly answered to me. Actually, I said lightly, I've got some major business developments of my own on the horizon. Nathan snorted. Landing a brand deal? Or maybe another interview on that startup podcast. Just then, my phone lit up. Amanda. Urgent. Board wants to move meeting up. They're seeing through Atlas. Merger panic escalating. I smiled faintly. You might even hear about it tomorrow. Tomorrow? My father asked, narrowing his eyes. What's tomorrow? Just another day in the digital world, I said, grabbing my coat. Leaving already? Nathan called. Hot date with your laptop ring light? I paused at the doorway, letting my eyes scan the room one last time. My father brow creased in disappointment. My stepmother, hopeful and worried. Nathan, smug as ever, still basking in a legacy he didn't know was slipping away. Actually, I said softly, I have some merger documents to review. The drive home in my Model S was quiet. Paid for in full, of course, not that they knew, they still thought I was renting. Back in my Capitol Hill brownstone, I settled into my command center, 12 monitors pulsing with real-time data. Contracts, markets, asset transitions. Velocity Nexus was executing the final phase of a quiet digital coup. Whitmore Logistics was collapsing. Too analog, too proud, too slow. Their only escape? A full buyout from my firm, one they'd beg for by noon tomorrow. My phone buzzed again. Mom, please think about what we said. Nathan. Still time to join the real world, sis. Dad, the Whitmore name still matters. Don't waste it. I turned to my screens. Billions moved in and out of Nexus systems every day. Let them keep their name. I already own their future. If you've been quietly building something of your own while the world doubted you, hit subscribe. Elise's story isn't over, and in the next chapter, they'll learn the name behind the buyout, and it won't be the one they expect. Thousands of employees, one flawlessly executed plan. Because sometimes success doesn't look like corner offices and legacy job titles. Sometimes it's born in silence, behind mucked side hustles and dismissed ambitions, until it reshapes the world. Tomorrow, they'd learn that the hard way. Whitmore Logistics still stood in its original Seattle headquarters, a limestone and steel monument to 3 generations of stubborn tradition. Same gold-embossed signage, same wood-paneled lobby that smelled faintly of old money and even older ideas. But today, everything would shift. Mrs. Whitmore. Amanda greeted me inside the private elevator. Calm, focused, not a virtual assistant or influencer assistant. Amanda was a Harvard grad who chose Velocity Nexus over a 6-figure consulting job at Bain. The board is assembled. Your father's... Pacing. I adjusted the cuff of my navy suit, tailored, sharp, a far cry from the oversized hoodies they all associated with my so-called digital hobby. Do they know yet? I asked. They know Atlas Tech's numbers are off, she said, but they haven't traced it to Nexus. Perfect, I said. Let them squirm. The executive boardroom buzzed with tension. Through the glass walls, I saw Dad pacing like a man losing grip. Nathan flipped through printed spreadsheets with urgency. Board members whispered, confused and agitated. Ready? Amanda held out the tablet. I thought of the years they called me aimless, of every Sunday dinner where my achievements were laughed off. Oh, I'm ready. The room fell still as I stepped through the doors. My father stopped mid-step. Nathan's documents slipped from his hands. Elise? He blinked. What are you doing here? This meeting is confidential. Is it? I smiled, walking to the head of the table. As the CEO of Velocity Nexus, I believe I'm exactly where I belong. My father went pale. What, Nexus? What do you mean? Amanda stepped forward without missing a beat. Allow me to introduce Elise Whitmore, founder and CEO of Velocity Nexus, the company finalizing its acquisition of Whitmore Logistics. Silence swallowed the room. My brother's jaw dropped. My father's hand clutched the back of his chair. This is a mistake. You run a blog, he choked. Social media tutorials. Not this. No, Dad, I said quietly, locking eyes with him. I run the company buying yours. I tapped my finger, and the boardroom screens lit up with Velocity Nexus's global corporate overview. I run a digital transformation powerhouse, I said calmly. We've spent the last 2 years positioning for the acquisition of Whitmore Logistics. Every setback you've had was part of the plan. Nathan finally found his voice. But Atlas Tech is a shell. I gave him a nod. One of many. We created them to apply pressure, redirect contracts, and dismantle your client base. Methodically. You were sabotaging us? My father said, voice raw. No, I replied. I was demonstrating exactly what you refuse to understand. That business has evolved, that success isn't limited to factories and warehouses anymore. The screens shifted, displaying real-time stats. The Velocity Nexus. Annual revenue, $12.7 billion, 0 cents. Active operations in 28 countries. Over 6,000 employees. Clients, Fortune 500, state governments, international tech hubs. Market cap, 4.5x, Whitmore's current value. And yes, in one corner of the screen, a modest Instagram page. That's where I share insights, I said, glancing at Nathan. The same ones you all laughed at. Why the secrecy? He asked, his tone unusually subdued. Would you have listened if I hadn't forced your attention? I met his eyes. When I proposed updates to our systems, you mocked it. When I suggested cloud integration, Dad called it a distraction. My father collapsed into his chair, silent. I slid the acquisition papers across the table. Terms are non-negotiable, I said. Velocity Nexus will absorb Whitmore Logistics at current market value, which dropped another 15% this morning. We'll modernize operations and bring your systems into the present. Nathan stared down at the paper. And us? That depends, I said. You can stay, learn, adapt, or walk with your payout, your call. One board member cleared his throat. Ms. Whitmore, what your company's doing? This is the future. I nodded. While you clung to manufacturing, we were building ecosystems. While you dismissed tech as a trend, we were rewriting the rules. My father whispered, eyes wide, voice low. Your tiny apartment in Capitol Hill. I looked straight at him. Was a command center. And now it's headquarters. It's not really tiny, is it? I said, a quiet laugh in my throat. The apartment is a restored Capitol Hill brownstone, valued at over $8 million. It has a climate-controlled server room in the basement that runs secure operations for a chunk of the West Coast's digital infrastructure. But you never visited, so you wouldn't know. And all that time on social media, Nathan started, was spent building global partnerships, overseeing strategic rollouts in 3 continents, and coordinating Fortune 500 transformations. I smiled. The Instagram stories? Just a bonus. And honestly, great camouflage. Amanda stepped beside me, handing over a fresh tablet and a set of updated briefs. Velocity Nexus stock just surged 9%, she whispered. And the tech media is calling it the merger of the year. Old industry meets digital empire. The papers need to be signed today, I said aloud, glancing at my watch. Before Whitmore Logistics drops any further. My father stood, the realization finally landing with weight. You planned every piece of this, he said, unsteady. All of it. I learned from you, I said evenly. You always said the key to business was strategy, seeing what others can't. I just saw farther. The next hour passed in a flurry of signatures and legal transitions. Directors shook my hand with respect they'd never offered before. Some whispered congratulations. Nathan stared blankly at the polished wood grain of the boardroom table, his Harvard MBA suddenly meaningless. As the final document was signed, my father approached me. Elise, why didn't you tell us? I looked at him for a long moment. Would you have listened? I asked. When I said the world was changing, you called it noise. When I showed you innovation, you called it a waste. I lifted my laptop bag. So I stopped explaining and I started building. Olivia's voice came from the far end of the table. You own our company now? I turned, calm and clear. No. I'm saving it, dragging the Whitmore name into a world you were too proud to see coming. That night, I sat in my real office, Nova Digital's penthouse HQ in Manhattan. The skyline pulsed with the glow of a connected world. A world I'd helped shape. My phone lit up. Mom, we had no idea. I'm so proud. Olivia, can we talk? I want to learn. Dad, you were right. About everything. I smiled, turning toward the wall of screens that pulsed with Velocity Nexus's global operations. Success doesn't always wear a name badge or sit behind glass doors. Sometimes it's forged in silence, behind dismissed ideas and belittled ambition. Sometimes it grows in the very shadows people mock, until it dominates the light. The next family dinner? Very different. No lectures about real work. No mocking references to social media or that blog thing. Instead, there were questions, genuine ones. Curiosity replacing condescension. Even Nathan listened, not to argue but to understand. He stayed on with the company, no longer leading, but learning. Humbled, but finally open. My father stepped back, quietly admitting the industry had passed him by. My mother stopped whispering her concern and started boasting about her daughter, the tech CEO. I keep building. I keep reaching further, deeper, sometimes from the top floor in Manhattan, sometimes from my brownstone in Seattle. Because real power doesn't come from where you sit. It comes from what you build. The Whitmore name, it still means something in business. Not because of what it once stood for, but because one underestimated daughter saw the future and built it anyway. One transformation at a time. If you've ever been laughed at for dreaming differently, for not following the traditional path laid out for you, then you understand exactly where I've been. They called my ideas unrealistic. They told me to get a real job. They mocked the long nights I spent building something they couldn't see. Until suddenly, they couldn't ignore it. I didn't set out to prove anyone wrong. I set out to build something right, something future-facing, something of my own. And if my story resonates with you, if you've been underestimated, overlooked, or told to shrink yourself to fit someone else's mold, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Share your journey. Tell me how you fought to be seen.